At Christmas, I gave my brother a gift of 3 months paid rent. He made a joke that I was trying to buy my place in the family. Everyone laughed while I took back the envelope and walked away. 10 minutes later, the whole place was a mess. Everyone was screaming, trying to get me to listen. I handed my brother a white envelope with $2,400 inside. Exactly $2,400 in hundreds, neatly stacked and paper-clipped. It was enough to pay his rent for 3 whole months. I didn't add a card or write anything. I thought the money would speak for itself. My brother opened it slowly, like he couldn't be bothered. He pulled out the cash, raised his eyebrows a bit, then announced to everyone that I was just trying to make up for not being important to the family. Then he laughed, not a small chuckle, but a real, loud laugh. My dad actually clapped at this. Mom giggled behind her hand. Aunt Sharon was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. Someone in the room whispered "savage," and I just stood there with my empty coffee cup, wondering why I even showed up. Nobody thanked me. Not one person said the money would help. Jake didn't even act like it mattered, as if $20,400 just appears out of nowhere for someone like him. He's 23 years old with no job and no work history. He sleeps all day, plays video games, or pretends to look for work. My parents call him a late bloomer, but I think of him as professionally dependent on others. I reached over and took the envelope back from him, put it in my coat pocket, and said, "Useful to know that." Just those 3 words. But everything changed instantly. It was like someone turned off all sound at the party. The dishes stopped making noise. The laughter stopped. I wasn't yelling or looking mad. I just got up and started putting my jacket on. Mom spoke first. "Oliver, don't do this. It was just a joke." Then Dad jumped in with, "Come on, he didn't mean it. Sit down and eat something." The aunt started saying things like, "Let's not ruin Christmas," and "You're taking this the wrong way," and "You know how your brother is." Yes, I do know how he is. That's exactly the problem. What they didn't realize is that I'd been at my breaking point for months already. I'd been paying their rent, buying their food, covering their bills. Every excuse from Dad's so-called back injury to Mom's sudden career break ended with me sending money to keep them going. And not once did anyone ask if I was doing okay. They just expected me to keep showing up, keep giving money, and keep being the responsible one. While my girlfriend Amanda was enjoying Christmas with her family in Vermont, I was here getting laughed at for being too generous. So I told them very clearly that this would be the last month I'd pay their bills. Starting next month, Jake would need to figure out his own rent. I was done being the family bank. That's when everyone really started yelling. They all had opinions. They said I was being dramatic and that I'd be sorry later. They kept saying it was just a dumb joke and I needed to stop being so sensitive. I didn't yell back. I didn't try to explain myself. I just walked out and left the door open behind me. No dramatic door slam, no looking back, just the cold air outside and the feeling that something inside me had finally broken for good. I thought leaving the Christmas gathering would be difficult, but it was actually the easiest thing I'd done in years. The backlash began the next morning. There were missed calls, long text messages, and guilt-trip voice messages. My mom went all out with the drama. She said I embarrassed my brother on Christmas and that our family had been through a lot. She kept saying I was always the one they could rely on. She didn't even mention the envelope or the fact that Jake had made fun of me in front of everyone. She jumped straight to making me the bad guy for how I reacted. I ignored everything and left all their messages unread. By the second day, they got more direct. My mom wrote that my dad was trying to talk to me man to man and that I shouldn't ignore him, so I agreed to come over for dinner. I wasn't expecting much, but I figured I'd let them say what they needed to say so I could say my piece too. Jake behaved exactly as I expected, eyes glued to his phone, not saying a single word. Mom played the perfect hostess like it was a holiday dinner and not a meeting to fix the damage. Dad made awkward small talk about stocks, which was funny considering I'd been paying their electric bills for the past 3 months. After dinner, he finally dropped the act and started talking about perspective and how money makes relationships complicated. He said he was sorry if things got out of control. Then came the sales pitch. Not an apology, but a pitch. He said if I could just help them through February, they'd have everything figured out. He claimed to have a possible job lead. Jake was supposedly thinking about taking some course. It was just bad timing, according to him. That's when I realized none of them understood the real problem. I told them this wasn't about one envelope. I'd been paying their bills, fixing their car, and covering Jake's bounce checks for 2 years. And what did I get in return? I got mockery and dismissal for doing what none of them could handle. Jake finally looked up from his phone and mumbled something like, "Nobody asked you to." I gave a short laugh. Then I stood up and told them they had 30 days to learn how to function like grown-ups. Mom started crying. Dad said I was making too big a deal of it. Jake just went back to his phone. I left my house key on the table in the hallway and walked out without saying goodbye. A week later, Mom texted me, "Rent is due in 5 days. Please send what you can." I sent them $1 on Venmo with the message, "More than I can afford." That was the last money I ever sent them. For the first few days after that, it was quiet. I think they thought I would show up with money and an apology like I always did before. But not this time. I was finished. What my family didn't know was that Amanda and I had been living together since November. Nothing fancy, just two people who liked being around each other. Her family didn't know me very well. They'd seen me a few times at gatherings where I was polite and quiet, not really standing out. But things changed after Christmas. Amanda's dad called me unexpectedly to help fix some shelves in their garage. I went mostly because I had nothing better to do, and partly because I thought he was a good guy. We spent a couple hours working in the cold garage, talking about tools and old cars. Nothing serious. Then he asked if I wanted to stay for dinner, so I did. That one dinner turned into 3 dinners, then a weekend visit, then a surprise invitation to her cousin's New Year's brunch. And the strangest part was how they treated me. Just like a normal person. Not like a walking bank machine. Not someone to make feel guilty or use. Her family actually listened when I talked. They asked about my job, what I liked to do for fun, what music I enjoyed. Amanda's mom asked if I liked banana bread, and then actually baked some the next day, because I had mentioned it once. It all felt so normal and easy. In a weird way, it felt like I'd been a visitor in my own life until then. On New Year's Eve, we were sitting by the fireplace at Amanda's parents' house, drinking cheap wine and sharing stories about terrible first dates. That's when I got a text from Jake. "Can you spot me $400 for a new TV? Ours is broken." No, hello, no hope you're doing well. Just asking for money like nothing had happened. I sent him $1 with the message, "Should be plenty." He never responded. That was the last I heard from any of my family. By the middle of January, I started noticing something strange. No phone calls, no text messages, no surprise requests for money. It was almost weird. I had gotten so used to them always needing me or criticizing me that this silence felt like the calm before a big storm. Then one night, someone knocked on my door. It was around 8 p.m., freezing cold outside, and there stood my dad. No warning text, no heads up. He was just standing there in a thin windbreaker like it was perfectly normal for him to show up at my place whenever he wanted. He didn't ask if it was a good time. He didn't even wait for me to invite him in. He walked right past me into my apartment like he still owned the place, like we were back in the days when I lived in his house instead of him, depending on me to pay his mortgage every other month. Luckily, Amanda wasn't home. She was out with her sister, and I wasn't ready for her to see this part of my life in person. Dad didn't sit down. He just stood in the middle of my living room and said he needed to talk about something serious. I leaned against the wall and waited. He got right to the point. They were 2 months behind on their house payments. The mortgage company had been calling them. That morning, a final notice had been taped to their door. He said they needed $8,000 to catch up and stop the foreclosure process. I didn't say anything. He started making excuses, saying he'd been looking for work, that his disability case was still being decided, that Jake was going through something, but planning to get his act together soon. I asked him just one question. "Where's Jake right now?" Dad looked down at the floor and said, "In his room, playing some game." Of course he was. Then Dad said, "Look, I know we haven't always shown it, but we do appreciate everything you've done. This isn't easy to ask, but if we lose the house, your mom, it'll break her." I told him I was sorry, and I really was. But I wasn't giving them any more money. Not $8,000, not $800, not even $8. He stared at me like he couldn't understand what I was saying, like this was some kind of test and I was giving the wrong answer. He said, "So that's it? You're just gonna let your family drown?" I told him I wasn't letting anyone drown. I was the one they had been hanging on to while they refused to learn how to swim, and I was done being their life jacket. He got quiet. Then he said the thing that made up my mind for good. I should have known you'd turn your back when things got hard. That's when I opened the door and told him he needed to leave. He didn't argue. He just walked out without another word. The next day I got a group message from my mom. It was one of those mass texts she sent whenever something bad happened. Hi family, we're in a big problem and trying to get money to save the house. Any help counts. Thank you and God bless. I read this message 3 times, waiting for something that showed they understood what they did wrong. There was nothing like that. A few aunts replied offering help. We can give $100. Let us know what you need. Sending prayers? I didn't say anything. 3 days later, Jake texted me. Hey, things are really bad. I'm selling my gaming computer and trying to get whatever money I can. Can you help pay the rest? You'll get it back, I promise. No. Hello? No sorry for what happened. I answered with just one word. No. He wrote back right away. So you're really just going to let us lose the house? Wow. I didn't answer him. What could I say that I hadn't said already? Every word would just give them more ways to make me feel guilty or try to control me. That weekend, Amanda and I went to her cousin's birthday dinner. Her family had started inviting me to everything. Casual hangouts, brunches, even just running errands. Her dad even asked me to help him build a new workbench in his garage. Her mom pulled me aside before dinner and said, "You are good for her. I hope you know we're happy to have you around." I just nodded, because I didn't trust myself to speak without getting emotional. It hit me harder than I expected. Later that night, I checked my phone and saw another message from my mom. It was just a link to a GoFundMe page with a picture of our house and a goal of $8,000. The description said, "Unexpected hardship. Please help us keep our home. Any amount helps." There was nothing about Jake, nothing about years of bad money decisions, no mention of me at all. I clicked the donate button, typed in $1, and sent it anonymously with no message. And finally, I felt like I could breathe again. February came and went without any word from them. No texts, no calls, no emails, nothing at all. The GoFundMe stopped at $740. I checked it once or twice, more out of curiosity than worry. There were comments from people I barely remembered. My mom's old coworker, a former neighbor from my childhood street, all saying things like, "Praying for your family," and "Hope you get through this." I didn't care enough to find out what happened next. I had moved on. At least that's what I kept telling myself, but there were still small reminders. Amanda and I were at her brother's house one weekend, helping them paint a baby's room, when I got a message notification from a number I didn't know. "Saw you with Amanda's family, looking real cozy over there. Forgot about us already?" I stared at it for a long minute before deleting it. Not worth responding to, not even worth the energy. Amanda's family, though, kept bringing me into their lives gently, without any pressure. I'd come over to fix a leaky faucet, and her dad would give me a beer afterward, ask about my job, and talk about sports. Her mom started asking me to bring food to their family potlucks, like I had always been part of their group. Her young cousin asked if I would teach him how to drive a manual car in the summer. It was subtle, but steady. They never once asked me for money. They never made jokes at my expense. They just included me. One Sunday afternoon, Amanda's dad called me directly. He said they were having a small backyard cookout and wanted to know if I could help with the grill. When I showed up, he handed me the cooking tongs like he was passing down something important. He didn't even ask if I knew how to grill. He just assumed I could figure it out. Halfway through the afternoon, Amanda leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" I said yes, and I really meant it. It felt weird standing there, flipping burgers, laughing with people who didn't know the old me. They didn't know the guy who used to drive an hour every other week to fix someone else's plumbing or cover someone else's credit card debt. They didn't see me as broken or angry or unusually responsible. They just saw me. A few days later, I got one last attempt from my mom. Her message read, "Can you help us get a new TV? Just a small one. Ours finally died. Jake's been really down lately. $400 would be enough." I stared at the screen for a while. Then I sent $1 with the message, "Tell Jake to pick up a book." That was it. That was the last time I heard from them. Not even a thank you. Not even an okay. Just silence. Finally, for once, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt deserved. By March, The silence from my family had hardened into something permanent. It wasn't like a Cold War. It was more like a quiet acceptance on both sides. No one reached out anymore. No more sneaky comments from Jake. No weak attempts to make me feel guilty from Mom. No strange phone numbers texting me with threats disguised as worry. I thought I might feel alone. I didn't. Amanda and I were building something that finally felt steady. Nothing fancy, not overly romantic, just reliable. She would leave small notes in the kitchen like, "Don't forget your lunch," or "Buy milk," with a silly drawing of a cow on the side. I found myself looking forward to simple things, like going to the farmer's market on Saturdays, just so we could playfully argue about which apples were better. It wasn't over-the-top affection or drama. It was small, genuine moments. Her family, though, that's where I really started to notice the change. It was Amanda's mom who triggered it. One Sunday afternoon, she asked me to come early to help set up chairs for her cousin's baby shower. I thought it was just about getting things ready, but then she handed me a list of errands as if I had already become part of the family team. I didn't even hesitate. I just did what was needed. At some point during the party, I noticed Amanda's dad watching me. I thought maybe he was judging me again. Old habits. But after everyone left and we were cleaning up decorations, he said something unexpected. "You know, you handle yourself well. I've seen a lot of people break down under much less." He didn't explain further or say what he knew or what Amanda might have told him, but his words stayed with me. That night I found myself looking back through old messages from my family. Nothing dramatic, just looking, trying to remember what it used to feel like to be wanted only when things were falling apart. I didn't answer any of them. I deleted the whole conversation thread. The next surprise came out of nowhere. Amanda and I were eating tacos when she casually mentioned, "By the way, my cousin Julia invited us to the lake house next month." I stopped eating. "The same one who couldn't remember my name the first 4 times I met her?" She laughed. "Yeah, but now you're at Oliver who fixed the grill. So I guess you've been upgraded." It sounded like no big deal, just a casual weekend away, until Julia's husband Brian pulled me aside that Friday night at the lake and said he wanted to talk about business. It means more this way. I had no idea I was even being looked at for a job. We chatted for a whole hour. Before the weekend was over, I got a job offer with less traveling, more freedom in my schedule, and better pay. Amanda found me Sunday morning just sitting on the dock staring at the water. She asked if I was doing okay. I just nodded. I was trying to make sense of everything. The truth was that all of this felt like I was taking something that wasn't really mine. A family that wasn't actually my own. A job that someone offered me while having beers. Peace that I didn't work for, at least not in the ways I used to think I needed to. I told her about the job offer. She just said she told me they would like me. The next week, my mom called for the first time in months. No message, just a missed call. I let it be. Then she called again and sent a text saying, "Can we talk? Nothing bad, just talk for a minute." I felt that old urge to make things easier and smooth things over, but I didn't call her back. I sent the text to Amanda. She wrote back saying my life is quieter now, and I should keep it that way. She was right. The more I stepped back, the clearer I could see things. My family wasn't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because something in their lives wasn't working without me around. But I was done being the person they used when they needed something. For the first time, I wasn't just a tool or a backup plan. I didn't feel like I was running away from something. I felt like I had finally arrived where I needed to be. April started with a calmness that made me unsure at first. I kept waiting for the next hit, the next favor someone would ask, the next way they would try to pull me back in. But the phone stayed quiet. My inbox stayed empty. All that weight I had gotten used to carrying, with money problems and emotional burdens, was gone. I took the job Brian offered me. He texted me one morning with a start date and forms I needed to fill out, like it was no big deal to completely change someone's life path. I signed everything that same day. Better money, less stress, and nobody treating me like I only existed to fix their problems. Amanda's family found out about my new job, not because I said anything. I never liked talking about my wins too much. But Amanda told her mom, and then the news spread quickly through the rest of her family. Her dad invited us over for dinner. He made ribs and opened a bottle of wine that he usually saved for special holidays. During dinner, Amanda's dad raised his glass and said to me that I knew when to keep fighting and when to walk away. Everyone toasted. I just said thanks, and that was it. No jokes or mean comments or awkward talk about past mistakes. Just people being happy for me. That same night after we got back home, I saw a missed call from my mom. No message this time. Just a call at 9:46 p.m. from a number I knew very well, but hadn't heard from in months. It sat on my screen like a question I didn't want to answer. A few days later, she left a voicemail. She said my cousin told her about my new job and she was glad to hear that. She hoped I was happy. She said they were still there if I wanted to come back. Like all I did was take a short break. Like what happened at Christmas didn't change anything. Like years of being treated as just someone with money could be fixed with a 5-second message. Her message didn't even include the word sorry. I didn't respond. I didn't even save it this time. The next hit came in May. A text from Jake. He sent a picture of a flat-screen TV for $390 on sale at Best Buy. Below it, he just wrote, "You could help. You know, $400 isn't a lot to someone like you." No hello, no explanation, not even a fake show of brotherly care. I didn't get mad, I didn't sigh, I didn't feel anything at all. I sent him $1 with the message, "Still too much." He never wrote back. That was the last time I heard from him. Amanda and I went to the lake house again that weekend. Just us. No plans or schedule. She brought books. I brought charcoal and meat. We grilled food. We swam. We played old card games and talked about nothing until the sun went down. It felt like a life I never thought I would get to live. That Saturday night, she was sitting by the fire with a blanket over her legs and her hair still wet from the lake. She asked if I missed them. I thought about it longer than I expected. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I finally understood what she was really asking. I said I miss what I hoped they would be, but that version of them never existed. I think I was just too close to see it. She nodded once and said good. After she went to bed, I stayed out by the fire. I opened my phone and looked through all the old messages one last time. Then I hit delete. Every number, every conversation, even the saved contacts. I didn't want the temptation. I didn't want the waiting. There's a point you reach when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop trying to argue your side, hoping someone will finally understand. I wasn't explaining anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping they would change. I had changed, and that was enough. When I came to bed, Amanda rolled over half asleep and asked if everything was okay. I kissed her on the forehead. I told her, yeah, everything was finally okay. Here is a small surprise that hit me harder than I expected. It has been a few months since everything happened. I wasn't planning to post anything else. I thought the story ended where it should have, with a clean break. New job, Amanda. Her family basically unofficially adopting me, and my old life fading away in the distance. But something happened last week that caught me off guard. Amanda and I were at her parents' house for a regular Sunday lunch. Just sandwiches and lemonade in the backyard. Nothing special. Her mom went inside for a few minutes, then came back with this small cardboard box, like the kind jewelry comes in, but a little bigger. She handed it to me and said it was nothing big, just something they found when they were cleaning the attic. I opened it. Inside was an old Polaroid picture of me and Amanda. It was from our first Thanksgiving at her family's house. I was holding a paper plate filled with food, in the middle of taking a bite, looking confused and kind of laughing. Amanda was beside me, pointing at something outside the picture, laughing really hard. Her eyes were closed. I barely remembered when this picture was taken. Her mom said they kept it because that was the day they realized I fit in with their family. It hit me harder than I thought it would. Not because of the picture itself, but because someone took the time to remember that moment, to save me in a memory I didn't even know was important. I kept the box. It sits on the shelf in our living room now, right next to a plant that Amanda swears isn't dying. I just wanted to share that sometimes the biggest surprise isn't some big dramatic event. It's just someone showing you that they noticed you, that you mattered to them quietly without asking for anything back.